The Mark II, there's kind of a new widget for everything. There's a radar widget, there's a speed widget, there's like there's a diagnostics widget, there's all these different things. Then we thought there should be one, we call it the Omega widget, one widget that has this kind of like, sort of like an iPod, sort of like a DVD player, north, south, east, west, kind of a really basic design that we all know and understand, with 4 quadrants. So in its rest state, we have navigation at the top, sort of health at the bottom, power on this side, and diagnostics on that side, and some targeting and some other information. But then, when he actually looks at it, there should be a lot more information available. So this whole bottom thing, which used to be just a single power level, then expands out, and we can see how it's got all of these new calipers, and they all, from Tony's perspective, looking through it, it explodes out in Z away from him. So that's the power side of it. Then the health side of it, at first there's a couple parameters for the health, and then it explodes out and shows them a little Iron Man and there's all that kind of thing. And then the navigation is the same way. Extra controls kind of pop up.
I see all the great work that those guys in the orphanage did to make the huts great. And my hat's off really to Dov Rock and his crew of people up there at the orphanage. And Jonathan Rothbart, the overall supervisor, did a great job with these HUDs, and I'm really happy with it.
Jarvis, sometimes you gotta run before you can walk. Time to hit the button!
It's funny, you go into a project like Iron Man and you say, okay, well, we've done robotic sort of things, we've done vehicles, you know, this should be okay.
Kill power.
This film has a real unique difference from robot films in that the characters are you know, they're human beings inside these suits. They're more like knights in armor.
In this film, the challenges were to sort of take a armor that he creates for himself and extend that in computer graphics in a way that you buy completely as being something that Robert Downey Jr. is wearing.
Please try not to move.
What's going on here?
Let's face it, this is not the worst thing you've caught me doing.
I went over and talked to some of our best hard surface model people, Bruce Holcomb and Ron Woodall, and basically said, oh, look, I've got this project coming called Iron Man, we have to do a test. And they jumped out of their seats and hit the roof laughing, and it was like, yes!
We had just sort of not maybe a month prior, not having heard anything about, you know, the project starting. Maybe a month prior, started seriously talking about trying to do something with it again. And he and I both had made the backgrounds on our machines Iron Man related, you know, images, just to sort of daily inspire one another.
And he used to say, we're never going to get this thing done. It's a big pipe dream. And then that's when Ben did come and kind of mentioned it, and he basically said, I told you they were going to do it. Now they got it, and now you can't do it.
You know, it's interesting, Jon Favreau's approach to filmmaking, which makes it really great to work with him, is it's almost Altman-esque, which is kind of an odd thing that you see. You don't normally run into that with visual effects. A really gratifying side of that is that you get to contribute ideas, and it's a collaboration, and he would challenge us. You know, Jon Favreau's approach to the creatures, the way they work, you know, he didn't want it to be kung fu-y. He wanted it to be more like, you know, bare-knuckle brawling.
He definitely has like kind of the cool library in his head of, you know, cool YouTube stuff.
Jon Favreau is very much about invisible visual effects supporting the story. And we talked a lot about stressing what the suit could do and not creating shots just to show off the visual effect there. We want to create a shot to tell the story and tell it well.
Iron Man didn't feel like it was approached like a superhero movie. It felt like it was approached like something with more realism.
We started off by referencing a lot of the comic book art, like the early artwork that Jack Kirby had done, and later on I think Steve Ditko had done in terms of the tech and things like that. So say, you know, his energy is, you know, rendered a certain way in the comic book, you know, his RT energy and his chest RT energy. But how does that translate onto a photorealistic environment, say on screen, where, you know, you have to believe that this energy is powerful enough to, you know, shoot a car out of the way or shoot him through the sky like a, you know, like a fighter jet. So that's when we started referencing a lot of real life, real world instances where this technology, you know, what does this type of technology look like?
Like a dream.
We actually put a lot of work into saying, okay, based on the design of the suit, how would he then use this to fly? You know, how would he make his flaps come out? What would he use to steer? That sort of thing. Tony's suit is so tricked out and fully featured, and bits fold out of it, and he's got weapons that pop up from it. And we actually built a whole underlayer to the suit to try and make it, you know, you could really see, oh, I can kind of get a sense of how this thing's driven and how it protects him and makes him strong.
All of the undertech stuff that is underneath the suit kind of got developed as we went along through the movie. And there are many shots of Robert Downey Jr. with a lot of the undermech on his arms and then on the boots, which I think they made practically as well.
Sequence early on where he's tested all his flying rig, and he's made, you know, got his what we call repulsor technology thrusters, the things that actually propel him, and he's made a suit, a flying suit that he's testing. And so we've got these big tracking shots that go around the silver suit as it starts folding pieces out and testing the flying surfaces. So there's these shots which we'd shot with the practical suit where the camera dollied around the practical suit.
But we ended up, you know, replacing it in these shots because we really needed just everything to move. But we had, you know, it gave us really good reference, and then we could, you know, just make it that bit sweeter. It's just so much fun to see all those pieces moving. And so that's a lot of, again, in terms of the design of the suit, you know, it was taken to a certain stage in the practical suit, and then once we got into the computer world and we really wanted to move things and have bits move, then, you know, we sort of modified things so that we could get a lot more action out of it, a lot more interest.
The goal was to kind of not make him so much of a transformer, more as like his armor is unified. And that's, I think we wanted to get away from the vacuum form look and more of like the parts were mechanized for a purpose.
Interestingly, what happens for that shot is we do a match move on it where we try to get the position of the camera and the position slightly of the creature, the suit. Then our animator and creature dev person comes in and start moving all the pieces. And then we go in the long process of lighting these. So this is a take where we have the real one, and on the side we have our CG one.
You know, getting the metal look on both the Mark II, where he's unpainted and it's this kind of brushed metal look, and the Mark III, where it's the red and gold, has been really tough.
It was a struggle to get that brushed metal looking right on the Mark II, but we sort of realized that we basically got there when Jon Favreau and John Nelson, the client-side effects, they started forgetting which bits were the real suit and which bits were the brushed metal suit. That sort of marriage of the CG and the real, where you're not sure where one ends and one, you know, that's something we always strive for. In one scene, we'd filmed Robert in a helmet and very little else. Initially, there was a slightly different take on that whole event. Iron Man was going to crash land on the roof, and he was going to be trying to rewire some stuff on the roof, and then Ironmonger was going to land on the roof and interrupt him. Now, during the evolution of the film, that changed, and Robert actually had thought he'd got rid of Ironmonger, that he's gone now. I've solved the problem. I've got to limp back home on, you know, one RT because the other one's busted up, and somehow make it back to the Stark campus. And he gets back to the campus, ends up crash landing on the roof of the Tokamak building, and so I'm done. Take off my helmet, take off my glove. And none of that was in the original performance. It was basically the original performance was him sort of walking forward, talking, and then turning around. So the animators had to come in and put a front end on that, because we still needed him to open the helmet and it be Robert Downey and it all to match. But the front end, he had to do a quite different performance while he was still Iron Man.
I'm almost out of power. I gotta get out of this thing. I'll be right there.
We actually went out and took a lot of photographs of all the sets that we were on so that we would have virtual backgrounds. We could recreate the sets in the computer on an as-needed basis. So then we had the option, when John wanted us to free up the camera.
And so we can actually move the camera around to places that it never was in the original footage. So then when we come back to the shot and do our version of it, you know, we're panned a lot more to the right, and we've added all this in over here. You know, this is all digital now, but we've mapped on photos that we took of the real set and then put in the sky so that we can really stretch it out and have a much bigger camera move than we had in the original shot. And then the jump is a lot bigger now with a more heroic moment in the middle of it. You know, we tried to get what we've been calling a Marvel moment, which is sort of, you know, here where he's really flying through the air, he's got his fist up and he comes down for this big punch.
In that case, what we did is we recreated the background, and then we had the buildings that are just behind, we had the city, and then the sky, and of course the two creatures, and that's what gives us the final result, with a lot of smoke and the effects of the repulsor that Jeff will talk about.
Some of the various types of elements that went into making, like the RT effect on like the foot. There were a lot of sort of powerful, sort of flamey elements that then would get built up. We add sort of glowy cores. We added elements such as this one to sort of that we could animate on a shot-by-shot basis and sort of emphasize different aspects of it, make it feel more powerful at times when he really wanted to goose it and accelerate through the frame.
All right, let's see what this thing can do. What's SR-71's record? The altitude record for fixed-wing flight is 85,000 feet, sir. Records are made to be broken. Come on!
It's been great. It's been really fun. It's a great way to kind of shake things up.
I wish I had a suit like that.
Good job. Good job.